Hello, I'm Shalini Behel and you're watching Art TV. I grew up listening to stories, lots of stories, from my grandmother and great-grandmother. That's how I learned about my ancestors and legends and values, adventures in the family. You know, I really miss that now because we don't have the time for storytelling. And yet, that is how we make sense of who we are and bond with other people. Well, today's guest, Meera Nussbaum of Silk Stories, helps people get in touch with their own stories, share them with others, and build community. She takes it one step further. She paints them on silk. You can hang it on the wall as a painting, or you could wear it as a silk scarf, or use it as a beautiful object for a ritual.
I listen closely to people's stories and reflect on them, and then I paint them on silk. My vision is to invite and inspire people in groups to reinvigorate the power, the experience, and the ritual of storytelling. Through visual expression of the storytelling experience, I act as a partner and a friend and decode the mysteries that lie within. People come to me when they're getting married, when they're having a special anniversary, when they're starting a business or ending a business or taking a rites of passage. People seek me out to assist in the process of creating a record or a map, which they can refer to over time. I get my excitement from talking to people. I don't have any desire to go over and paint unless I've had an interaction and have something that I know will have a home. I see myself as a bit of a visual scribe for people's stories.
I wanted to get my husband a really personal gift for our 10th anniversary, and I wanted to make it about our relationship, how we met and what it means. And he took my pottery class when I was teaching it. So there's a pot here with the hands that are really about making something out of mud, out of nothing, and then how the seed is planted with water. There's a little seed here and it grows into flowers. Each flower has a different meaning, and there's 10 flowers for each year. It ends with the tree as the 10th year, which is really a strong and very beautiful tree. And then I didn't want it to have an ending, so there's a bird with wings that flies into the future and carries our love and lets whatever is going to happen in the future be in the bird.
It was really great working with Joy because she had a lot of ideas of what the emotion she wanted to put into the silk and the images. And so I got a chance to explore and research which specific, for example, bird would capture that emotion. So as I did some research, I found the hummingbird represented so many different things through all sorts of cultures and history. And so as I gave her this silk, I also gave her a packet along with it of the different meanings behind all the different images here.
So how did you come up with this concept, Meera?
Well, I grew up in a house full of art. My dad was a collector, and when he collected a piece, he would get to know the artist, and he'd often collected multiple pieces from each artist. Mm-hmm. So he would even get to know them so well that he'd have them over for dinner, and I'd get to meet them and hear their stories and learn a little bit about where their desire to create came from. Mm-hmm. So I was surrounded by that. He also wrote poems and designed stained glass windows to be made to expand those poems and visually. Mm-hmm. And growing up in that, full of art, full of ideas, I also needed to get away from that. So so I dropped out of college and I moved into a cabin on land for 2 years without electricity. And so I didn't have any expenses during that time. I had a lot of time to do whatever I wanted to. And so I took that time to just kind of look inward and figure out what it was that I really wanted to be doing. And so I just kept coming back to the desire to create and find whatever objects I could and make art out of them. And what excited me the most during that time was when someone came to me and said, I really like what you do. Can you come and make art for my home? So I went and I actually designed a bunch of pieces to fit into this woman's home all over her house and got to know her. And I also went to a cafe that definitely wasn't very exciting, or the atmosphere needed a little help. And I went and I painted murals on the walls and kind of redid the whole cafe. And they just let me do whatever I wanted to. So I just kept continuing to come back to, I want to create, I want to be creative. That's something that I want to offer people when I take this time to sit with them. If it's for an hour or for however long it takes to kind of get into a space of that pause, that looking inward to really find, what is it? If you could create anything you wanted on fabric with colors, what would you do? Now I'd like to take you along the steps of my painting process. First, I create a comfortable space where we can go into the storytelling realm. I use the word story to describe anything that people are inspired to share. It's usually a collection of symbols, shapes, colors, and images which capture an emotion or experience. I start by opening up the senses, reflecting on a feeling of home, and then I move into the scene. To Shalini, home felt like water. Water was always there as a core part of who she is and how she moves in the world. The goddess, which is light, which is the sun, represents play and celebration. Her hair, which becomes water, touches the world as she moves with its ripples. These ripples move out into radio waves, which are connected to the butterfly, which is also a computer. As I develop the scene more, I ask about the interaction between the characters and the overall feeling of the scene, with Brick bringing a sense of grounding, yet leaving room for wild footprints and weeds. Her story takes place in a forest, where magic happens. Transformation unfolds and everything holds life. Even in the dark, she is centered and not afraid as she blooms from the lotus. Once I have had a chance for that conversation to sink in, I draw a sketch. Then I stretch the silk and then apply the resist, which is permanent. And then I add the dye, which when it meets the fabric, it just absorbs and spreads and the color becomes alive. I then steam it in a pot to make the dye permanent and vivid for its final result.
Besides getting a beautiful scarf and a meaningful piece of art, I found the process with Mira to be very contemplative. At the time I was going through this transition, I had just left my job as a professor and moved here for the sake of my family, and I found that there was no job available here. So I had to recreate my career, and my work with Mira allowed me to really capture what's meaningful from my past and to create this new vision of who I want to be now. And I really enjoyed having Mira as a friend to speak to, and the fact that she could capture my story so that I can now keep this as a reminder of my greatest potential. And now I have this beautiful scarf that I love to wear, and when I'm not wearing it, I hang it in my meditation area.
Right now I have 3 people who are currently gathering together, friends and family, to share their stories in a shared space. And as they do that, there'll be tea and snacks and a nice, comfortable atmosphere. They're going to ask for donations, and those donations will go to support me painting their story. So they get to, the audience gets to experience their knowledge and lessons of their sharing. One of the women has survived 2 rounds of cancer and chemotherapy, and so she's gone through so much, and her women's group gathered together and cut off parts of their hair or all of their hair in camaraderie to support her. And I'm going to take those braids or those pieces of hair and put them into probably the border of the silk. So this gives them a chance to call together the people who they are close with to share their stories, not just me. So another really fun project is a local flame worker, Jeremy Sinkus, who makes these beautiful underwater creatures. And I have collaborated in creating hooks for the silks, taking images from the silks and putting them on large beaded, beautiful hangings. A local carpenter designed these light boxes, lit frames to illuminate the silk. I get to collaborate with all these fun local people too, so creating a sense of community in business, even working with a few seamstresses and Shalini.